Welcome back, everybody, to your daily update on the state of the Malazan Empire. Yes, we're back. Pentecost is over. I took 3 days of not doing stuff. Well, not really doing stuff, I guess. Um, just to clear the mind, although clearing the mind was not exactly what I did, but. But also got the first chance to actually go outside for a beer in a beer garden because they're finally open again if you get tested or have the vaccine and stuff like that. So that was fine. And now I'm back and ready to tackle the Crippled God. And I've started with book one today, and I'm already two chapters in. Book one has only 4 chapters. The structure of this one is a bit different, so it'll be done by tomorrow, I guess. So let's get this started. Cheers. All right. There's a few interesting things going on. Although a lot of what happens in these first chapters is very much about, once again picking up all the pieces and making sure we still know who's where and all of that, which is good. But there's already some interesting things happening and going on there. And I'll try to go through them one by one in a way. I'll probably forget a ton of the things, as usual. But here's something that I found very interesting and powerful in a way. When I reread it this time around, we have that one scene with Mael and Karul sitting at the bottom of the sea and talking. And now this is what I want to focus on. Like in this case, I mean, I know that Stephen Erickson has said before that he has, of course, been inspired by Greek tragedy as well. Well, as rightly he should, because Greek tragedy is pretty cool. Um, but what I found here is that conversation that those two have at the bottom of the sea, commenting on all the goings on in the world. That one reminded me so much of you're like more of a tragedy or like drama in general, where oftentimes you have like the gods on the side commenting, re-evaluating, sort of like the chorus in a Greek tragedy, I guess. Re Evaluating and so forth, the goings on there. I don't know, just this specific time, it just really struck me that bit. So there's that. Also, the concept of justice once again comes up when we have finally actual contact with Forkrul Assail, who will be our final adversaries in this book, as far as I can tell by now, right? And the idea of justice being the one thing that we know has led the is sort of the key notion at the core of Forkrul Assail beliefs and so forth. But in the ruminations there that Calm has about the idea that justice is basically the key to it, like the interesting thing here is that justice as a notion is something that is at the core of human belief as well, right? We all believe in justice. We all have different ideas of justice and so forth, but we all hold the idea of justice very dear. We claim justice all the time. The idea of like the general act of judging, which is obviously part of the idea of justice, is something that is at the core of every at the core of human of a human being, of the human nature, I guess, of human nature in a way. It's one thing we do all the time. We judge. So I feel that's an interesting thing when Calm reflects on that idea of justice, and says that it was like at the core, but it has spread out in all these other like aspects of human life, and only the for cruel assail have remained at the core of justice. This brings us to the other aspect, obviously, that justice is a rather messy thing in the end, and justice is tempered and all of that all the time. It's always justice as a concept is more flexible than we might actually want to accept, and adhering to a very harsh justice, to a like very clear absolute justice, is in the end a very inhuman thing. It's like this weird double thing, that thinking about justice and claiming justice is a very human thing, but actually going through with absolute justice is a very inhuman thing. That I felt was like an interesting aspect of what Calm thinks and does and so forth. What else do we have? We have the idea of not losing. Now, this is like another thing that is obviously part of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, is coming more and more to the fore in the last books now. The idea of potential, the idea of not giving up as a very human trait, and the idea, yeah, the idea of not losing, and that there is something between losing and winning. It's like when Cotillion said that even though he cannot win, he at least doesn't have to lose either. So that, you know, is a very human thing. The idea, like the resilience or the potential of human nature is very, very like strong under extreme circumstances. So yeah, there's that. We also have a long discussion like of the crippled god talking to us directly, I guess, at this point, almost. Breaking the fourth wall, probably. And I'll have more to say on that score. But what I really enjoyed about that like long monologue of the crippled god is how the crippled god claims that he has changed over time, which reflects the way we perceive the crippled god from all the way back when we first meet him in Memories of Ice, where he is that creature that comes across as really, really evil. And now that we're near the end, we as readers have started, hopefully, to realize that there is more to him. He's not evil. He is in pain, certainly, and he acknowledges that pain and accepts that pain, and he is broken, obviously, but he is not no longer lashing out in evil. That I feel is an important aspect, and I'll have more to say on all of that later on. So, yes, I said we're touching base with all these different people. We actually hear of Ganos Paran again. There is another interesting like thing, that conversation that Ganos has with Shadow Throne, and Ganos is apparently now on the same continent as the Bone Hunters, fighting for Crulasail. That's interesting. Um, but the conversation he has with Shadow Throne about the idea of faith, or the source of faith, and how it is impossible to explain the source of faith to anyone, And that's a very true thing. It's like one of the things that I personally struggle so much with in life is like I'm not a religious person. I just lack the capacity for faith. It's just not there. And I have friends who are religious, and I guess some of you are probably religious. It's very, very difficult for someone who is not a religious person. It's very difficult or basically impossible to understand the concept of faith or the source of faith because it's something that goes beyond words or lies almost by definition outside of words. So having a human try to explain faith to a god is obviously a very interesting notion. And this is like maybe just like because I just thought of it, like later on, there's a small sentence in chapter 2 where I keep forgetting who it is. Maybe Mappo? I don't know. Is thinking about um, Gruntle and Setok, and the words are used them and the gods bound to them. See, that's the important aspect there. It's not that they, as Deathtrend and Mortal Sword, are bound to the gods, but it's the other way around, that the gods are bound, connected to mortals in the mortal world, and that is something that I feel Shadow Throne is trying to understand also in a way. So yeah, there's that. But then also thinking about that scene with Olar Ethil and the kids at that camp in chapter 2, and yeah, it's a lot of bad things there. But we come once again to that idea of necessity, also that idea of self-image in a way, and self-punishment when we have someone like Precious Thimble who has no problem bartering the kids away, which is horrible as fuck, especially since we as readers know that Olar Ethil is not exactly a nice person, or not anymore. But the idea that sometimes we as people, when we have the feeling that we have failed in something, now we then go on to make horrible choices in order to wedge out that one mistake of the past, to show everyone that we are actually capable and so forth. And we start being more ruthless than we actually want to be, just because we're driven by that pain of failure in the past. That's sort of what I see with Precious Thimble here. And it's a dangerous situation, that point where we realize our selfishness, and then, because that's sort of what she does there, like when we realize our selfishness that has led to mistakes in the past, we then try to do something that is not selfish, by in her case, making that sacrifice of like that deal with Olar Ethil, giving away the kid, in order to save everyone. But at the core, it's still selfish, because the motivation is very much to outdo that mistake of the past. And that's still a selfish motivation there. But on the other hand, I guess that's the thing that we should also not forget is mistakes or failure needs time to heal. And if we don't give ourselves the time to heal, or are not given that time, we then make more mistakes. So I kind of feel sorry for Precious Thimble, even though, yeah, what a shitty move. But then, coming back to this, the opening of that chapter 2 with Tula Shorn and that head of that one Talana Mass, and that has that dead Jughead child behind him and is still haunted by it, basically. The idea of not showing over our shoulders into and not looking at the dead children in our past. That is something that we as a species, obviously, I mean, yeah, we know that, or should be aware of that, that we as a species are not, have not come to the point where we are today without having a lot of dead children in our wake. But I find it's like from the composition of that chapter, it's just well done when you start with that powerful image. And then when you look at what the people at that group, the Trigal group with Mappo and Gruntle and Setuck and Torrent, well, not Torrent, are doing, they're also leaving like children, well, not yet dead, but you know what I mean, in their past. So you have that like symmetry between that thing at the beginning and where it is going. To say nothing of obviously what happened in Collants with the children that were fleeing into the desert there. So yeah, there's that. Also, obviously, we learn that not all bone hunters are dead, but some have survived, and we still don't know how many. But Ruth and Gud has survived, Bottle has survived, Quick Ben has survived, and this is like the big "who the fuck is Quick Ben" moment. There's a video on that topic by Iska Jarak. Although he is smart enough to not actually spell that full word in the title. But yeah, so Quick Ben apparently is related to Mother Dark, but who is his father? I don't know. It's all kind of weird. But he also has that point once again that we as humans, or like, yeah, are able to do a lot of things that, yeah, we as humans are able to do lot more than people expect us to be able to under like extreme circumstances. What else? Yes, a heavy indictment of the human species by obviously Urinas, who has now the charge of taking the Imas out into the world outside of the refugium. And that's going to be interesting, because it's obviously the question of how much can the Imas remain the Imas in that world without being, destroyed by humanity that is culturally more advanced. Because that's what we do as people. We take advantage of weaker people and we destroy them, and then we try to forget them to make sure that we, don't accept, are no longer aware of the fact that we did something morally reprehensible. But yeah, that whole speech he gives to Kilava is pretty impressive when you look at general human behavior, especially Western behavior in times of colonialism and so forth. All right. What else? Yeah, just a quick mention, that scene with Draconis and Relata and Oblala Pung. Draconis' life advice is incredible. I love that sentence. Courting is the art of growing like mold on the one you want. There's some truth in that, I guess. But, there's still more to be said about Ublala Pung being much more than just comic relief. Also, I'm going to polish my hammer is, yeah, glorious. Which apparently is a mace again. Rilk is a mace again, no longer an axe like at the end of does to dreams. So I'm glad that mistake was fixed again. Anyway, I feel that's sort of most of what I wanted to say. I'll be back tomorrow with the next two chapters, and then we'll see how far this will go this week, I guess. Anyway, until then, have a great Monday evening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.